All right, and we're back with episode 4 of Miles's Files. This is Miles, and today I'm basically going to be running you through the concept that has brought me through this week and how hopefully you can apply a similar concept to your own life. So, what I want to talk about today is the power of one. And this is a term that I wouldn't say that I've coined, but I kind of have amalgamated it over the course of being influenced by different people and different concepts. And it really helped me, for example, get through the March running challenge I did, which was insane. And I would have ran over something like 800 kilometers in the month of March, which is not sustainable, but I like to take on a good endurance challenge. But nonetheless, there's a quote that I kind of want to get the day started with, and that is how you do anything is how you do everything. And it takes a while once this quote comes on your radar for it to really sink in because um, you kind of, it's not to say you don't believe it at first, but it is quite hyper conscious, let's say, of if they're saying how you do anything is how you do everything, it is all encompassing. And I've found this quote to come back into my head time and time again. So I thought I would put it on your radar to see how it makes you kind of stop and reflect on your own life and think, okay, how I'm doing this right now and listening to Miles, am I listening to him fully, or is my mind kind of all over the place? And if so, what are you doing right now? And if so, you're probably not doing that thing to the best of your ability if it is you're multitasking. So, um, I guess the main concept that would have reinforced this week is a conversation I had with my friend Ryan Carruthers, a good friend that I made up here in Canada, and he basically, after spending a lot of years with me in the same entrepreneurship program, he said that he kind of touched base with a lot of those entrepreneurs after to see kind of just how everyone was doing, really. And he found the main recurring theme was that a lot of these high achieving people are very good at discussing ideas. And this is something that I'm doing right now, and this is something that I would have even promoted at the end of last week's episode, is that the wise person discusses ideas. So I'm glad Ryan came onto my radar this week because he kind of allowed me to level up mentally in the sense that he said the recurring theme was that while people are good at talking about ideas, they're not necessarily that well versed at acting on what they're saying. And that kind of, again, humbled me because a couple of days before that I would have been promoting ideas. But again, you kind of want to test your own beliefs by putting them out there, putting the ones that you firmly believe in out there at least, and hopefully in someone challenging it, you kind of want to be able to be empathetic enough to consider the other person's side of the argument. And thankfully, because I was able to do that, I agreed with him. I was like, holy crap, that's acting really is the main value, like an idea is a dime a dozen, sorry. And especially good ideas. Well, I wouldn't say especially, but even if it is you have a good idea, it might be exciting to think you have a good idea, but an idea is really nothing more than just something in your head until you start talking about it. You start putting plans in place. You start acting on it. And I would have mentioned talking as the first thing. So even though like thinking and talking can be two different things, and again, this is why I'm putting my voice out there because it is the first step on acting on anything you want to act on. So you can keep that in mind. The last concept that Adam Cook would have put on my radar this past week as well, another good Canadian friend of mine. He just kind of differentiated the difference between higher level pleasures and lower level pleasures in life. And you can think of lower level pleasures as like things that any and everyone can indulge in, like for the religious ones out there, it's your lusts and your gluttony and whatnot. So yeah, like while we all indulge in that from time to time, the concept of acting is, okay, how can we act on something that will allow us to experience a higher level pleasure that maybe, not to say nobody else can achieve it, but not everyone can do it unless they specifically act. Um, so I'll leave you with that on the concept of the power of one. Now, I want to give a bit of a personal example as to how this kind of allowed me to manifest a specific goal that I had. Um, so, as you'd know in listening to this fourth episode of the podcast, it's about a month into me doing these, I guess, having a YouTube presence, right? And I want to kind of take you back a couple months to November, really, or even September. So I would say that to start you off with the goal, which I didn't have in mind in September, it was really, as any kind of post-secondary student can relate to, it's getting a job, but not just any job, but preferably one that is aligned with your skill sets and aligned with people that are just aligned with you mentally and creatively. So I went into this leadership class in September without any like preconceived notions of the fact that I held a leadership position with my business for the past 3 years and whatnot. I kind of came in as a blank slate and learned a lot about leadership. But the main thing that comes out of it all is the fact that it's all people based. So one of the things that the professor did was he required everyone to keep in weekly touch with him. And of course, like you can think about a university class, not all the students are going to actually do that. But coming from this entrepreneurship program that I would have alluded to before, one of the most core value activities that we did was a weekly check-in. Simple accountability with not necessarily a third party, but even if it is two parties discussing an activity that you would have set out to do the week before, it's really just touching base on like, okay, you said you were going to do this, so like, how did it go? Did you do it or not? And if you did or you didn't, you kind of then flesh out what went well in that pursuit and keep doing those things. And what didn't go well, stop doing those things. So when he put this concept back on my radar, I knew how high value of an activity it is to basically get an unbiased opinion from someone as, let's just say, smart as himself. So I got in touch with him. He would have literally just heard out my ideas and then guided me in the right path. So I ended up touching base with a teaching assistant, Jason, big up Jason, and after meeting with him a couple of times to have him hair out my brain, basically, he connected me with my professor's colleague. And this colleague had an e-scooter business that is just pre-revenue, but it's an exciting prospect in a disruptive field. So I ended up getting in touch with this guy, and it kind of started from there. I was intrigued with what he was doing, and I said, you know what? I am going to basically join you on this journey of trying to change the way people get around, basically. So that was the first seed I planted. Is that it's not to say I am a micromobility whiz or enthusiast by any means, but that was one of my takeaways from that class, is you don't necessarily have to be 100% aligned with something to be able to act on it, to be able to get value from it. So if you're letting something like it being an imperfect solution stop you, just know that perfection is the enemy of progress. So yeah, that it started with just working with this guy, again, pre-revenue. So I was doing free work. And the way pre-revenue goes is you're basically applying for any money you can get, really. So that was my job, is I was just applying for grants and figuring out how to fund a startup. So lots of learning there. Got a lot of programs on my radar, a lot of experience in like what seems to be and really truly is just menial work, right? Like nobody truly wants to be filling out multiple grant applications for someone else for free. But the thing that gets me to do these things is the learning behind it. And I would encourage everyone to really determine their uh, job prospects. And I mean, to be honest, anything you do in life based on the learning that you get from it. Um, there's a song, I don't know if it's Protege or Chronics that says it, but they say, "What do you know if you learn every day? So be careful of things that you say." Um, so yeah, basically, instead of saying that I know anything, I just started to act, and figure things out as I go. And that then led me to another gig. So I know everyone out there, I would encourage you to at least try and do some one thing in a field that you're interested in. But again, I'm not necessarily a micromobility whiz, so this isn't necessarily my passion, but I'm passionate about disrupting the future of business. Um, so that being said, this led me into a second self-induced apprenticeship, which was basically me coming across a magazine called Corporate Knights, the voice of clean capitalism, um, and a list they put together called Canada's Top 30 Under 30 Sustainability Leaders. I read through the list, I read what these people have done, and I was pretty inspired. So just happens to be that the CEO of this magazine is best friends with the prof of the leadership class. So one random morning, the prof sends out an email saying, "Who wants to come for a run with me and Toby Heaps, CEO of Corporate Knights?" And if anyone knows me properly, that's asking answers basically. So I found myself there. We went for a 5K run, and over the course of that 5K run, Toby and I just fleshed out, okay, this is a very cool list. What can we do with it to maybe make it a bit more? I pitched him my idea basically over the course of a 5K run, which is not easy to do. I was like, I think this list is cool, but to get more people like me, being young people, to take this kind of example and act on it, I don't think they're going to end up on your website page reading through it. I think young people are digesting content in a more audio visual way these days. And he completely agreed. He was like, I think this is a great idea. And that was all I needed, to be honest. He gave me a green light, and from there, I got the contact, the contact information of these people. And that was since December. I started interviewing people for free based off of a passion. Um, so I started that process, went through it all up until now, kind of sat between February and March on editing them. But now I've edited them all. They're ready for publishing through the platform. And the reason why I'm telling this story is because it manifested as such that earlier this week, while plugging away at editing these final interviews, I get a call from the CEO, and he says, "Myles, yesterday I did this webinar. It was a lot more successful than I thought it would be, and I need someone that I can trust to help me with the next 7 webinars, because it's a 7 webinar series about trying to implement a $300 billion stimulus package to Canada's economy when it comes to clean infrastructure." So I am basically not only in a prime learning position because I accepted his offer. He needs help, I'll do anything, like a clean up databases, I'll do anything to be in the center of a groundbreaking discussion on the future of our economy, because that's my passion. So lo and behold, here I am now employed and being paid by this guy. And it all started with doing work for free. So I would encourage anyone to kind of identify their passion and just act on it. And once it's pure intentions, you can't go wrong. So thanks for listening, everyone. I just want to say that start to talk to people. That's the first step. Peace.